Welcome back to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess, the sexiest voice in triathlon, who's at a disco right now, James Bell. I see you got the crystal mirror ball out behind you. Where are the techno lights? How you going, mate?
I got a disco ball this week, mate. I thought that would be a nice addition. You know, I always like to change things up. I thought a disco ball would be, very in keeping with my personality. Yeah, I'm well.
But by personality, do you mean that it has the same sheen and reflection as your head? Because that's very similar. Two shiny reflective balls in the video screen.
Funny you say that. I was killing time with someone the other day, and we had a bit of a drawing competition as to who could draw the other one best. And I put a lot of effort into doing this amazing portrait, and they just drew a potato.
Or just a round ball with two eyes and a mouth. I think, because for our audio listeners who don't go, you should go to youtube.com and check us out. You're recording in a white room, and I like to think that you were like, shit, this wall's really plain. I need to spice it up a little bit. And
I'll put my traveling disco ball up.
Exactly. I always travel with the disco ball. That's my decoration.
I'm in quite a cute little B&B place on my way back to the UK, mate. As you know, I've been away for a few weeks, and on my way back, and then I'm getting back into the Devon swing of things slowly. How are you, mate? How are you keeping? Enough about me and my disco balls.
Disco balls. I'm good. I'm having an easy week, actually. I don't know if I was telling you before. I was meant to race a half marathon on Sunday, but I had to sort of withdraw because I've got that. When you start to get really close to races, you start to that fine line of maybe I'm going a little too far. And I think I maybe crossed over a little bit. I'm not injured or anything, but there's I think there was the potential. So I backed off a bit. But it's funny how my training peaks fatigue has been like minus 20 to minus 30 for like 3 or 4 weeks. And I took a rest day on Monday because I got my COVID booster on Sunday, and then rest day Monday, easy day Tuesday. And I got to Tuesday afternoon. I'm like, I feel fucking incredible. Like I feel like I am the greatest, like I am the ultimate man. Like I felt it, and I couldn't work out what it was. And Sweeney, Matt, my physio, he's like, what's your fatigue score? I'm like, it's +2, mate. What the hell is like, he's like, I feel incredible. So it was a nice change to like sort of lift out of that constant state of fatigue that I've been in for about a month. And, but I'm back into it again now, mate. I'm back into the trenches. But other than that, mate, I can't complain.
Well. COVID boosted.
Mate. Yeah, exactly. Doing my bit. Got another Europe trip coming up in, I think, 2 weeks. I'm back to Europe doing a Phoenix Futures camp in Poland. This time, I've never been to Poland before.
Are you going to the Collins Cup?
I'm not going to the Collins Cup. I couldn't make it work. European flights are an absolute nightmare, and trying to make it work. I have spent so long the last couple of weeks trying to like work out the logistics of this thing, that thing, and I just couldn't. I was like, I give up.
Yeah.
I give up.
The same.
So
my invite came through to the Collins Cup last week, and it was like, oh. And I was looking at logistics and where I could go and how I could go, whether I could drive there. The flights are just a monstrosity at the moment over here. There's cancellations, and you just wouldn't trust it. So yeah, I can't make it this year. It's a shame. It's a real shame. It's a crying shame.
We'll talk about the Collins Cup a little bit later. But before that, James, this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, the world's premier endurance sports community. Created by 4-time world champion Chris McCormack. Jimbo, what's something you like about MX Endurance?
Mystery and excitement, mate. Mystery and excitement. That's what I like, because there's probably one of the biggest announcements MX Endurance have ever had that I've got in my brain, and you've told me, and therefore you've put it in my brain, and I'm not allowed to say it. So that's what I'm mostly excited for about MX Endurance, but I'm not allowed to say a word, am I? Because I think there's something big, something bigger brewing, and I've got to keep it to myself.
I think the ink is drying as we speak on the deal that we've just agreed to. This huge, massive strategic partnership. Can't say too much.
It's going to have changes across the board. It's going to have changes for the members. It's going to have changes for the coaches. It's going to have changes for everything involved in MX, all for the better. So I can't wait till we can really chew on that one, mate.
I would go as far as to say, James, for the people who want, this has the potential to change the way people train for triathlon, actually. So we're really, really excited at this. If you want to find out more, obviously follow the social channels to keep listening to the podcast, because we'll be talking about it as soon as we can. But I think we had just before we recorded today, I had a big 2-hour meeting with all the stakeholders involved. And yeah, it was like this thing that we've been working on for like honestly months at this point to get the actual like we're doing this, congratulations guys, everything today was yeah, it's pretty exciting, and I also do like a little bit of sizzle, as people will know. So yeah, I'm not going to give it away, but just there's something very exciting coming for MX Endurance, so you might want to get ready, guys. But there's also
MX
James
Endurance, sponsored by Ventum. That's where we're going, isn't it? Isn't it?
Mate, I said not to say it. What have you done? You've ruined the surprise.
Oh, God, I fucked it, haven't I? Jesus Christ.
Was it last year's April Fool's? That's what I did. I did the MX Endurance branded Benton bike. And I reckon I always get a bit annoyed when you do the April Fool's joke. It's like, if you know it's an April Fool's joke, congratulations.
Yeah, you don't need to comment.
Just keep it to yourself.
The problem is, there's about 90 comments underneath it saying, yeah, it's an April Fool's, yeah, it's an April. So, like, not only do you realise it's an April Fool's, and you know it, well done, you then go to the comment section, see that everyone else has already said it, and think, you know what needs adding here? The fact that I know it's an April Fool's joke.
Yeah, but you know why that is? That's because they go, well, I have to tell, because as soon as you see one person, oh yeah, I also know it's an April Fool's joke, because you then don't want to be, it's almost like omission by silence or something. So if you don't say it, people go, well, James Bale didn't say that he knows it's an April Fool. Yeah, because
so
it's
he's
like
an idiot.
I think the best April Fool's joke I ever did, because I do every year. It's good that everybody sort of forgets. But I think I did that we're changing the membership structure for MX Endurance. So your membership fee is based on your triathlon results and social media following. So the more podiums you have and the more social media followers you have, the cheaper your membership is. And people got so angry at me. I had so many people being like, if this is what MX is doing, I'm canceling my subscription, all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, check the date. And they're like, oh, God, that was a good one. But yeah, the Ventum one, I think people know my opinion of Ventum well enough to know that would probably not happen. Yeah, Ventum.
I think the actual announcement is going to be much more exciting than all of our members receiving a free Ventum.
And it won't be an April Fool's joke either. But let's get into the news, James Bale, because there's plenty to talk about. We're going to be talking about Ironman confirming Kona for 2023. We're going to be talking about PTO choices. We're going to be going through some race results. We're going to be talking about the outdoors triathlon that you were over and reporting on the ground. I've got a lot to talk about that race. But let's get into it firstly with an article from Tri247 from Ed Mazzetti, a name I'm not familiar with. So it must be one of their new staffers because I know they're recruiting. And his article is that Ironman confirmed Kona 2023 will again be held over 2 race days. Separate men's and women's race days will continue at the 2023 edition in Kona, organisers have confirmed. The announcement comes as part of a double boost for women's Ironman, with more female qualification spots for the event also introduced. The 2023 race will take place on October 12th for women and October 14th for men, with this year's races coming October 6th for the women and 8th for the men. Having separate race days means that organisers have increased the number of women's qualifying events to 17 globally, with these designated as Women for Tri events. These qualifying events will take place in the USA, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Germany, France, UK, Spain, Sweden, Ireland, Canada, and Denmark. They will create more than 1,200 additional qualifying opportunities for the World Championships, with age group athletes the key beneficiaries. Jimbo, we've discussed the possibility of this a lot, and now that we have the confirmation that it is another 2-day race.
It's one of those things, isn't it, that people are going to say, and rightly so, that they're doing it so they can increase the amount of people on the road, so they can get more money and income and stuff. But the outcome, in my mind, is a good outcome. Mm-hmm. So I don't really care that they're doing it for that reason, if you know what I mean. It's like having the race over 2 days, as long as they alternate, in my mind, so it's not.
But they're not, mate. That's
the
problem.
I know they're not.
That's the problem.
But they should. That's my only criticism really is, and my only comment is that they should alternate which whether it's men or the women having the Thursday or the Saturday or however they're doing it. But having a Kona race over 2 days, good thing. Please alternate the start days for the genders, because I think that would be better for everybody, because then the women don't feel like they are being pushed into the less easy to watch race earlier in the week.
Yeah, and I actually think, again, this is great news, but I also think there's a lot of this is also quite problematic for a number of reasons, and they're not necessarily Ironman's fault. Some of the problematic things, I think, they're not changing the days. That's problematic. It's their second edition. Hopefully, the feedback will come through and they'll start changing it moving forward. But one of the things that has been terrible, or one of the massive side effects of, sorry, the 2-day race this year is it is nigh impossible to get accommodation in Kona at the moment. And I've seen a lot of discussions happening around where they're saying that, this is an expensive sport at the best of times. And now Kona is not only becoming this race that's almost impossible to qualify for, but you can qualify and suddenly you might not be able to afford to go to Kona because I'm talking, mate, some of the places, Joe Skipper, who I was talking to Joe about this the other day, he had a place booked that he cancelled it from 2020, and they just let him pass it over. And I think it was like $170 a night. And he got told this year, sorry, Joe, we'll give you a refund, or you can rebook. But instead of it being $170 a night, it's $400 a night, because suddenly there's double Kona is tough place to book accommodation at the best of times. But if you suddenly double the number of athletes for the same amount of accommodation, that's a huge problem. And again, even when I've been looking to go, it's insane how expensive it is to get there.
It's I keep getting asked by people if I'm going to Kona, sponsors and partners. We're going to see you out in Kona, and it's like, well, mate, it would cost nigh on 20 grand when you've included travel and accommodation just to be there for that race period. And it's like, nah, I ain't going to be out in Kona. That is too expensive. It's too much of an investment for a sport that doesn't bring in the revenue for most of the players who operate within it. It's too much of an investment to be at an event. It's just not doable. And like you say, this does make that more difficult, which is why I think they should have that rotating calendar. But we've done that to death over the years. I don't know whether anything will change. But do you think this is going to make the locals less?
No, they hate it, mate. The locals fucking hate this. Again, I've seen it firsthand. I was at a supermarket in Kona, 2019, and again, just buying groceries, which again, insanely expensive in Hawaii. And this big, fat, angry local was just going, I'm fucking sick of all these fucking people being here. Can't they just piss off? And I'm there going, he knows I can hear him. He's clearly saying this because he wants a reaction. And I'm like, what the? And as he leaves, the cash attendant's like, that wasn't very what did they say, mahalo? I'm like, I was like, Jesus Christ, it's true. So I don't think this is going to be doing it. And that's why I'm thinking, I love the two races, but maybe do them 6 months apart. It's not like it's cold in Kona. It is like, why not do?
No.
We've seen the European,
do you
for
think
example,
that would break the crescendo though a little bit? Do you think? I mean, we all build up to these championship events, and I worry that if you separated it 6 months apart, you'd break that sort of that build up to the, because Kona, its placement in the year, the where it is, it's kind of like that finishing off point of a long season of build up, because you start in January and you get to October. I worry if you put the men's or the women's race 6 months before that, you'd be risking not only breaking that season-long narrative, but you'd also be risking, do I want to prioritize Kona, or do I want to peak for the PTO events later in the summer? That sort of thing. I fear that you'd be messing with that. I think a rotating calendar would be better. I think I don't know. The accommodation cost issue is a big problem, and I can't see a solution for that. It's not like the government can step in and be like, yeah, tents. I don't know.
Or cruise ships. Get the cruise ships in. Get them all parked along. They can like, maybe that's what you do, and just have everybody stays on boats.
Ironman cruise ship sponsored by Ventum.
You get a big cruise ship sponsorship. They line the swim course. There's just boats for the whole, 1 and a bit Ks out.
Pedalers with tents on the back.
Or they have to do something where maybe it's like the course is changed, where it's not purely bait. Maybe it still finishes in Kona, but the swim starts somewhere else. But I don't like, or it's a point to point where the starts at one point, the finish is another point. So you can spread out the accommodation and then half stay at one place, half stay at the other place, and do shuttles.
Ironman step up and subsidize the accommodation for the pros at least, so that there's some assistance, because asking
you're a funny guy, mate, aren't you? You people say you're a bit serious, but you tell good jokes. Ironman subsidising the accommodation of the pros. I'm laughing so hard you can't tell. My belly's aching, because that's a very funny joke, mate.
Asking a professional athlete who doesn't earn a huge amount to pay $400 a night for accommodation for a race they've got to be at is a. And
where do they? What do they pay? 10 deep?
And that's the lower end. I've heard stories much higher than that, and it's
right.
and it's
ridiculous.
for people like us, you know, let's say we were just podcasters, and we wanted to go and cover the sport that, one of the biggest events in the sport that we cover, week in, week out. Remove the management side of things. We're just podcasters. We're sports media. We couldn't afford to go. Like, not a hope in hell's chance. So you're limiting coverage as well by making it such an expensive thing to be at. It's a monstrosity, mate. Now it's a big gargantuan monstrosity of money sucking hole.
Yeah, and again, a huge barrier, because suddenly you have this very real reality where people have maybe qualified 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it is, when they qualify for Kona pre-pandemic, whatever it was. And the hope, like, they've been thinking this, I can't wait to get to Kona. I can't wait to get to Kona. And suddenly they're going, I can't afford to go to Kona. Like, not only are we coming out of the...
And it's not even a question of like, oh, some people might not be able to afford it. It is the sort of money where 60% of the people I know wouldn't be able to afford it. It's not money the way you just think, oh, it's just a big holiday. It's a fucking deposit on a house kind of money.
Yeah, mate, it's insanity. It's actually, it's madness. Like, it's actual madness. And yeah, so I'm curious to see where this goes, because if you had have told me this, like, when we used to talk about this, oh, they should split it, they should have 2 days, that'd be great. I don't think I ever anticipated this being the side effect, I guess. I
didn't either. And what do you think it is? Do you think it's a perfect
locals
storm
want more
at
money?
The moment? Yeah, but do you think it's a perfect storm of 3 years of no real racing, so they're trying to recoup some losses in terms of the cost increase, plus the locals want more money, plus there's extra demand, so demand drives price increases. I mean, it's all coming at once, isn't it? Do you think the prices will go down over time once we get further away from COVID, or do you think it's just like, well, we got away with that?
Yeah, because prices always go back down, don't they? And of course,
they do. That's how the capitalist model works so well.
Again, like I said, 2019, it wasn't cheap. Like, I think I can't remember. I think I maybe spent 2.5, maybe $3,000 on a place I was in for 10 nights. Not awful, but that was half because I shared with someone, and it was doable. But it was still like, shit. That's not cheap.
Yeah.
But there's double the number of people, and it wasn't like accommodation was easy to find.
No, and if you use Joe's story as an example, and if his accommodation is ×4, so you're $2,500 ×4 that, you're looking at $10,000 for sharing a place. And you weren't in the ideal location, were you? You weren't right in it.
5K. I was at the run turnaround on Alihi Drive, yeah.
So,
I think I saw, was it Alex DeBoer? I think I saw he said, I've got a room at a house in Kona. But I remember doing the numbers, and it was like, for a room in a house for 10 days, it was like $6,000-7,000 or something. Like, I was like, what the actual fuck? So anyway, we've spoken this to death. Keep your eyes peeled, though. It's good. There's lots of slots for women. I love it. But there's things to be to see. But however, James, I'm going to follow up the race with too many athletes racing to one about athletes, not enough athletes racing. So if you can't get to Kona this year and you're looking for an alternative, I can recommend another race, because this comes from Sarah Wasson Flynn at Triathlete Magazine. Race numbers low for the upcoming 70.3 Rwanda. With just 2 weeks to go before the launch of Ironman 70.3 Rwanda, the first Ironman brand race hosted in the African interior and the first in Central African country, registration is at a mere 200 participants, according to local news sources. That count includes just 5 Rwandans, and is a number which is far less than the targeted 2,000 that was expected when Ironman officially added Rwanda to the 2022 calendar. Why the low numbers? Race director Michelle Murame said that it could simply be a matter of not many people know the race is going on since it's a brand new event. The far-flung location of the course, which features a hilly bike and run, may also be deterrents. We are doing our best to mobilize people to register and come to participate, and we hope to have at least 500 athletes before the deadline, she explained. The race will take place on August 15th and will offer spots to the 2023 70.3 World Championships in Finland. Registration opens until August 4th. Are you surprised by this piece of news, mate, that there's only 200 people in Rwanda who are doing it at 70.3?
I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting place in Central Africa to go and hold a race, and I think, the more diverse and interesting places that we hold races, the better. I think the issue they might be coming up against is launching this race so soon after a highly infectious global pandemic, which is also absolutely battered the international transport industry. So, like we said earlier, flights and accommodation, and it's so disrupted, and people are a little nervous about booking holidays to places that aren't like nailed on to be, I'm definitely going to get there. So there's probably an element of that. There's also an element of lots of people have got deferred races this year from the last 3 years. So maybe not many people are going, are scrolling thinking, where am I going to do my first race, or where I'm going to add, what new race shall I sign up for? So add that into the perfect storm. Then add the name recognition of Rwanda and the Rwandan genocide into it. I think people's brains probably go to a like, oh, Rwanda, without doing any research or without looking into it and looking at the stability of the country now and how how it is hospitable. They may go, oh, maybe I won't even look into that one and just gloss past it. So add all those things in. I think that might be a bit of a reason for the lack of uptake. But it's a shame because if the opportunity arose, I'd go and race it. But I'm in that bucket of people that's got all these deferrals and doesn't trust the transport industry. So therefore, I ain't going. Are you going?
No, I won't be at Rwanda 70.3 on August 14th. Yeah, I remember hearing they announced this, and I was like, oh, cool. Like, again, as you say, I love hearing about races in new destinations. But I also think we're going to get 2,000 people at the inaugural race in Central Africa. It's like...
Yeah. Central Africa, the year after the world's opened after a pandemic, in a year in which the transport industry is on its knees, flights have been cancelled, people can't get anywhere, you might be struggling. And I'm surprised they're surprised.
Yeah, I guess that's sort of more where my head was at. But I also am like 200 people. I guess we're going to see all these people in Finland in 2023 for the World Championships, I'm guessing, because there's probably a lot of slots going to be going out. Do you think it'll happen? Do you reckon they're going to do it? Or do you reckon if they get to the thing and it's only 200, they'll just go, it's not happening?
I think it'll happen. I think the similar sort of thing happened in Edinburgh 70.3 a few years ago when the Ironman had that. They didn't get there was only like a few hundred entrants. They didn't get the uptake they expected.
Okay. I mean, again, Edinburgh, similar situation to Rwanda.
Yeah, it wasn't as low as this number, but it was nowhere near what they wanted. And I think they ran the race because I was in it, and they then handed the race back to the local organizer they'd purchased it off or they'd franchised it off. And now it's not run as an Ironman event anymore. I think the same thing will happen here. Probably is they'll do 1 year and think, oh, we got no numbers, and they'll probably put it on ice. And for the time being, it's a shame about Edinburgh because I loved that race as an Ironman 70.3. Qualified for the 70.3 Worlds there. I did.
There you go. Congratulations. What was your time?
I cannot remember off the top of my head, mate. I cannot remember.
It must have been low fours.
Probably 350 or something.
That's it. And the results probably don't exist anymore either, so it can't be verified anyway. It reminds me, there was a race I've done in Melbourne a lot, and it still exists. It's now an Ironman, but it was originally called Challenge Melbourne. Challenge Melbourne, it's now Melbourne 70.3. One of my favorite races. I love this race so much, and I started to get frustrated because it got to the point every year where you're just going, is this race going to continue? And I remember one year in particular, I think the finisher towels didn't even say Challenge Melbourne. It was like Melbourne Long Course Triathlon. And I thought, that's a pretty damn insight that this race was pretty skeptical whether it was going to happen or not. And ultimately, it got changed to Melbourne 70.3 Ironman race, which I think is great for it because it gives it a bit of certainty. But yeah.
Like you say, 70.3 Finland World Championships. That'll be that's a race worth aiming for. Yeah, that's a race worth
so keen for that race, mate. That's like one of my big races for next year is to try to get that slot because I really, really, really want to go to Finland and do that race.
Mate,
it's like a 1 o'clock start or something.
I am coming to cheer you on if you're doing that race. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, I love Scandinavia. Love it a lot. Lived there for a couple of years. You know, another place that I bet you love that is a beautiful part of the world is Alpe d'Huez, mate. An Alpe d'Huez triathlon happened last week. It's why we recorded it earlier or something because you were going to go watch the race.
Yeah.
And the race happened, mate. And there's a lot to talk about this race. I got the summary from Ed Mazzetti, same guy again from Tri 24/7. And he's just given some very brief summaries of the races. In the men's race, Leon Chevalier was around 2 minutes adrift of the leaders as he exited the swim, clocking 44.55 to eventual runner-up and compatriot Simon Vians, 52.53. But he took control on the bike leg, registering a 3:52.49 with no other rider breaking the 4-hour barrier. Alpe d'Huez is one of the Tour de France's most celebrated climbs, and this year saw Ineos Grenadier Tom Pidcock claim a spectacular victory on its punishing slopes. A closing run of 1:15.18 brought Chevrolet home in 5:41.13, with Vian recording 5:59.11 and Spain's Albert Marino Molins third in 6:01.37. In the women's race, Barbera Rivieros clocked 30.11 for the shorter women's swim and a strong bike leg of 4:33, giving her a big advantage. She finished with a 1:28.24 run for a total time of 6:35 flat. Germany's Svenja Toes was second in 6:43.39 after splits of 33.27 for 40.50 and 1:25.46, while France's Alexandra Tonda finished third in 6:55.08. And that's all there is to talk about with that race, isn't there, James?
Why is the women's swim shorter than the men's? That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know. But
Was it a condition thing?
It must have been, but they must have started fairly close to each other. It wasn't shorter. I mean, the last time they ran this race was 2019. This was like the comeback year for the Alpe d'Huez Triathlon. The last time they ran this race, 2019, I was in this race, and it was 41 degrees C that day. It wasn't as hot this year because I was on the mountain. I was watching the bikers come up. I'd hiked up the back of Alpe d'Huez and come down the front to watch the bikers come up. I missed the leaders, but I got there for the end of the pros and the bulk of the age groupers, and it was a fantastic day. What a place to be. If you're ever in that region when the Alpe d'Huez Triathlon is on, it's well worth hiking up to the top of Alpe d'Huez and taking in some of that festival atmosphere that you find up there. Now, it was cooler. It was about 31 to 36 degrees, I think. So people were suffering. People were
chilly, actually.
Nice. Chilly, yeah, a little bit cold. People were suffering a little less, but I do love to watch the amount of suffering that does take place up that mountain because it is a tough climb. People who aren't used to climbs like that, who aren't used to the mountains that Europe can offer and the switchbacks and the gradient. You know, if you were coming into this race having only raced Alpe d'Huez a few times, you would think, oh, it's not that steep. It's all right. I can just keep the pedals turning. And then as soon as you come out from Bourg d'Oisson and you turn left up and it ramps up that first bit of the climb at the bottom of Alpe d'Huez, you realize how fucking steep it is. I made a
huge mistake.
Yeah. And you're like, I've got 14 odd K of this now and 21 switchbacks to deal with. And it doesn't, it's relentless really. It shallows off a little bit at the top, but not by much.
Would you attempt this on a one by?
Absolutely not. Now, I say that from a position of understanding that there are bike riders out there that could do this on a one by. There are people out there who are strong enough and have that experience. For me personally, I'm not that rider. Firstly, I'm not that experienced on riding a one by. I haven't got that bigger legs, and I think unless you are particularly versed in this sort of mountainous terrain and this sort of racing, you want to come in with something and something that is going to work for you and gives you that range. So no, I wouldn't. Why do you ask, Tim?
The follow-up, Mountain 2 climb for Long. Sam Long, who we spoke about doing this race last week, we were excited to see him go, recorded splits of 43.58 for the swim and 4:05.33 for the bike before pulling out. Massively undone by his bike setup, as he explained afterwards on social media. A DNF for me today, but also history was made. I think the first time ever up Alpe d'Huez with a 54.33 as my easiest gear. I was very worried about this one by setup for the last few weeks and did everything I could to get a different gear in and lose weight. Alas, it fell short. That destroyed my legs, and then a 5-minute penalty from transition 1 destroyed my mind, I was told after the bike. All in all, though, quite a positive experience and a great race day. This race kicks ass. Congrats, Leon Chevalier, for the win and to all the other finishers today. He basically said, I tried to change his gearing. COVID supply issues are a real problem. Of course, would say that I've installed it before I left the States, but I wasn't planning on doing this race. I get all that stuff, and I think the fact that Sam has just gone out there and had a go, I fucking love it. But one of the things we do on this podcast, James Bales, we give out some awards at the end of the year, and one of them, the most controversial award, the one that we get a lot of hate for, is the Lionel Award for chucking a Lionel. And I feel like Sam Long might have this award in the bag already because trying to go up Alpe d'Huez with a 54.33 as your easiest gear, fucking lots of balls. Like, well done, mate. But
there are riders that could do it. I don't see if it was me and I had that gear ratio set up and I was trying to change it, and I didn't manage it, I wouldn't start the race. He just walked out of T2. I think he was just done. He didn't even start the run.
He got up the hill, like he got up the climb. It's not like he did it, which is incredible, and he's like fast too. He was only a bit behind the leader, but fucking hell, mate. Like, no, no,
Yeah.
thank you.
No, it
No,
smoked him.
thank you at
But
all.
also, I mean, the worrying thing there is the deeper element to the Chucky Lionel of this is the quote, "I did everything I could in the last few weeks leading up to the race, like trying to lose weight and change my gears." Now, we know that trying desperately to lose weight in 2 weeks before a race isn't going to do your ability to race that race very like much good at all, because you're going to be, if you're trying to lose weight that quickly over that period, 2 week period, then you're not going to be losing weight that you don't need on race day. You're going to be dropping muscle and stuff. It's not, and it's going to be more water and dehydration. So I just don't see that approach being the best. I don't think he tailored himself to build up for this race over a long period of time. It was a last minute decision, and that decision bit him in the arse.
I'm a huge Sam Long fan. I love what Sam does for the sport. Like he genuinely, I love his shit. I love it. I love the yo-yo stuff. And I my first, again, when I heard he was doing this, like fucking awesome. Like I love that Sam he's a pro, but he's just sort of living the European tour. But come on, like it's starting to get to, again, like I said, you're a pro. I'm not seeing the momentum that we've seen from Sam in the last couple of years, because it is just like a series of not so great performances. And I don't want to be critical, because like I said, I think Sam has got such a bright future. But you look at his peers of the similar ilk. Somebody like a Magnus Ditlev is a great example. Magnus has gone from being like a guy who could kind of bike and was pretty good at 70.3 to fucking suddenly he's a contender for Kona. And Sam has gone to a guy who's got the strongest legs in triathlon to suddenly, what's Sam doing at the moment? Like I don't really know where we are with Sam, and I don't want to like. There's a funny part to this. I love that he had to go, but it's also like, were you on holidays, or are you actually out there trying to make a living from the sport? Because this isn't a very professional decision in my mind. And I get it's hard, because while they're pros, it's also a hobby. Like you do this sport because
Well,
you
yeah, I
love it.
mean,
But
it's exactly what I said a minute ago, isn't it? If I was going into a race like this, even as an age grouper, and I couldn't get my gears changed to go up the mountain in a gear ratio that I wanted, I wouldn't start the race, because I know that I would be suffering like that. Now, take that to a professional level, and is that a sensible decision? I don't think so. I don't think that process would have done his legs any good whatsoever, especially if he's trying to strip rate that quickly before the race. I just, you know, Sam Long's excellent, and I'm sure he's got much more to come. I just don't think this was his finest hour.
Come on, Sam, we want to see you do well, mate. I can't wait to see him race the Collins Cup. I genuinely think he's going to be. I assume he's got something to prove, and I think Sam is so good at that middle distance. Like what he did at 70.3 was last year, what he did at St George. Ultimately losing the line on that sprint finish, that was one of the gutsiest performances last year. I want to see that Sam again. I want to see Sam.
Totally.
Like that's what I want to see. So again, big things to come, I think, hopefully, and I look forward to it. We got some races to talk about now, mate. We talked about the news. Let's talk. That was a race, obviously. I just realized, but there was a few races that half the world don't give a shit about. I put up a post this week in the MX group, and I said, if you are not a Commonwealth nation, did you watch the Commonwealth Games triathlon? And they're like, what the fuck is the Commonwealth Games? Which I think is very funny. But if you actually look at the results in the races, I think we saw some exceptional racing on the weekend. Like genuinely, some of the best triathlon racing I've seen happened in Birmingham on the weekend. And we're going to start with the women's race. Again, I'd like to thank Graham Shaw at Tri 24/7 for the summaries. We've watched these races, mate, so we probably don't need to go through the summaries too much, but we'll use them as sort of reference points. The swim, Beth Potter put in a terrific performance to lead the field on the 750-meter swim ahead of reigning Olympic champion Flora Duffy, who spent most of the leg sitting on Potter's feet. Right behind them were the English contenders of Taylor Brown and Sophie Caldwell. Now, straight away, mate, I saw this, and I'm like, what the actual fuck is happening?
Yeah, it bemused me as well. I was watching, because I watched the men's and the women's race. I didn't watch the mixed relay, so I'm gonna have to rely on the summaries a bit when we get there. But I was watching this, and I was like, why isn't Sophie Caldwell outstripping everybody in this swim? Who's leading? And then when they said it was Beth Potter, I was like, fair play to her. I don't know whether that she has raised her swim game to the level of a Sophie Caldwell, or whether Sophie Caldwell was having a bit of an off day and therefore not able to dominate the front, or whether it was a tactical decision from Sophie not to exhaust herself on the swim and lead it out. I don't know the answer to that, but it was good to see Beth Potter upping her game to that level and really working on those elements that she needed to work on.
This race, to be honest, again, Beth swim, Jenny, I was like, what? Like, what's happening here? This race came down to one moment for me. I think this race was decided in one. There's one particular moment, and I bet you know what that moment is. But as soon as that moment happened, it was game over. Like literally, and I think we all sort of saw it coming. Like it was even who was in commentary? Was it who was in commentary? It was. It actually probably depends on where you were in the world.
Vicky Holland and
I don't think it was Vicky Holland for me. Anyway,
Vicky Holland. Anyway.
Again, I think it depends on whether like different countries had different commentary teams, so it's a moot point. But it was literally a case of Flora Duffy's about to attack, and within seconds, Flora Duffy attacks on the bike, and it was game over. It literally was just like, okay, that's the race done.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think Georgia Taylor-Browne made exactly the right decision in going with her at that point.
100%.
And the only person who was able to, it wasn't a moment to fuck about. It wasn't a moment to go, who else is going to go? It was a moment to see Flora's attacking. She's the one who's got this attack in her. She's the strong athlete. I've got to go with her, and she went with her. The only athlete that was able to go with her, which was telling, and once that attack was made, it was those two going solo. Mate, for me, as soon as they ran out of T2, it was clear who was going to win. You could see Georgia Taylor-Browne wasn't on her toes. She wasn't running with the fluidity that we've seen Georgia run with in the past that allows her to have some of the spectacular performance she's had. You could see she was fighting it a little bit. It was reminiscent to me of watching Frodo in the first bit of the run before he pulled out of Roth. He was kind of he didn't look like him. And Georgia Taylor-Browne didn't look like Georgia Taylor-Browne. She looked like she was fighting, whereas you could see as soon as she ran out of T2 that Duffy was on one, and that gap just kept growing. And it was spectacular to see. What a performance, though, eh?
Flora Duffy, you said this last week, and I was a bit like, oh, Georgia's pretty good. But, man, Flora Duffy is the queen of triathlon at the moment. We talked on last week, and again, at the time of recording, we don't know who the captain's picks are for international, and I couldn't come up with international captain's picks. It's Flora Duffy, mate. Fucking, I don't care what you have to do, PTO, get Flora Duffy to the Collins Cup, because that is something that I want to see. She is so good at the moment, mate. I hope she gets that 70.3 slot. But honestly, as soon as she attacked on the bike, I was like, Flora Duffy's won this, because I just can't see the others catching her, and they didn't. And again, Georgia Taylor-Browne, literally the same result she had at the Olympics, silver medal in the individual, gold in the mixed team relay, was fantastic. And then the other thing was, I think I didn't pick Beth Potter for the podium. I was like, I think she's better at the super short stuff. Fantastic, mate. Gutsy performance. And to get that bronze, we've seen the evolution of Beth Potter over the last probably 18 months. And she's just really on that upward trajectory, and I love to see it. So
yeah, so do I, because it's not. I like being wrong, and it's not something I predicted. I didn't think we were going to see this. If I'm honest, I thought she was going to come in and be a bit of a flash in the pan, especially after that Super League Arena Games thing, and everybody was going, "Oh, I'll pick up for the Olympics." And I was like, I remember saying at the time, "Hold on, do not do this, because one performance doesn't make a complete Olympic, decision." And it's really good to see that upswing, and I like the fact that I was wrong on that.
So first place, Flora Duffy, 55.25. Georgia Taylor-Browne, 56.06. Third place, Beth Potter, 56.46. Fourth place, Sophie Caldwell, 57.06. And fifth place, Sophie Lynn, 57.08. Sophie Lynn from Australia, mate, was an athlete that I'd not really heard of ever before this. And Christ, she was good. She had the second fastest run split, and she impressed me so much. It actually was, it's been a while, but as an Australian, to like have an athlete go, oh, look, we have, here's someone that I can sort of like get excited about see racing. So Sophie Lynn, another one. I thought that was an exceptional performance.
And I'm pleased for you as an Australian that you can get excited about fifth place. I'm pleased that's. I'm pleased you're there now, mate. Well done. It's like an acceptance, isn't it? It's like a sort of, yeah, this is what we're at now.
It's true, mate. You're not. You're trying to have a bit of a dig at me, and I'm just like, no, you're not even. It's not even funny. It's just fact. It's fact. But honestly, I thought Sophie was great. So good to see. And again, I still thought it was a killer field. Great, exciting race in Flora Duffy. Fantastic. I've got Flora coming on the show in a couple of weeks, actually, which I'm pretty excited about. And hopefully when we talk to her, it'll be the week of the Collins Cup. So that'd be cool. Let's talk about the men's race, mate, because the men's race is pretty boring, to be honest. It was much like the women's race. It was sort of didn't really come down to much. Not much drama happened. It was just sort of
Yeah, we
Done,
don't do
wasn't it?
drama, do we? We don't do drama.
No. Again, surprisingly, Hayden Wild was very, very far up at the swim. Again, much like the women's race, I was genuinely like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, how the hell is
Yeah.
Hayden so far up the front?
When we've got a group chat, haven't we? And the group chat was live and active during the men's race. Probably the most active it was for me because the women's race I had to watch on my phone, so I
Yep.
couldn't dip in and out. But with the men's race, I had it on my laptop, so I could be on the phone at the same time. Watching Hayden come out of the swim that far up with, out of position for him, really, that far near the front and with a gap to Yi, I remember dropping a message into that group chat just saying, look, Hayden's got this. Without question, he's got this because he's finally broken that problem that we've seen, which is that he's too close to Yi when he comes out on the bike, if not behind Yi, and therefore has a lot of work to do and then a lot more work to do. And the way he attacked that bike and went off on it, I thought, well, here we go. Here we go. This is the one. He's done it. And the way that his group were working together to try and build that gap, they weren't building the gap as quickly as they'd hoped, but the chase group were not working together appropriately.
At all.
Yes,
No.
Yi had his teammates who were dying on their bikes for him, and Yi was doing a lot of work himself in the end, so respect to him for that. But the most annoying and frustrating thing, and you see it a lot in pro cycling, is when there is a chase group and people in that chase group sit on the wheel of the main person who wants to be up there and go, well, you've got to drag us up because you want to be up there. We're happy to lose if you don't do it. Man, is this pro sport or not? Work together, roll the dice. Yeah, Yi might be a better runner than you, but you're either if you're not up there, then it doesn't matter. If you're up there, you're in the game. Yeah,
There's
exactly.
3 medals.
Exactly.
I was thinking about Hayden's swim. So one of the big things that happened at this race, Henry Schumann withdrew from the individual and only went and did the mixed team relay. And I wonder if I'm not trying to criticize Hayden. Again, Hayden's a good friend of ours. But do you think it is that Hayden's swim was exceptional? Or is it more that without that super sharp top end swimmer like a Vincent Louis, like a Henry Schumann, like an Alistair Brownlee, that maybe the actual pace was just off? Because maybe what normally happens is those excellent swimmers get away and a few people go with them. And then the group split like that. Maybe, I'm not sure. I hope Hayden's got his swim sword and he's going to see him as a front pack swimmer. But I also wonder if that was maybe a bit of a case of it.
Yeah, I think there's probably an element of that, but more so, I think the biggest metric is how far ahead of Yi he was. Because
exactly, that's all that matters.
Yeah, it's all that matters, and it's not out of those two. Neither of those are the people that are in those groups that escape with the front swimmers. Him being that far ahead of Yi was the point, and coming into T2 with the lead he had, man, it was exciting, wasn't it?
Seconds. What did you think? 16-second lead. You're thinking he's got this?
I was thinking he can do this, but in my head, it wasn't a he's going to hold him off thing. It was a he's going to run. He's going to run at this level that he's got until Yi catches him, and he's got to leave something in the tank for that moment, for that to be able to have that second gear. And I was hoping that he wasn't at his limit, so that when Yi caught him, it was like, oh well, that was it. That's the best I've got. I was hoping it was I'll run here. Yi will catch me, and then I've still got another gear. Because I know I'm a Brit, mate, but I was pulling for Hayden. I was pulling for Hayden like you've never fucking seen. I was screaming at that laptop. And then the news came through, didn't it? First, it was a rumor on the group chat. Yeah. And I was like, the commentators haven't said anything. The commentators haven't said anything. The commentators haven't said anything. This can't be true. And then, boom, it dropped.
It's funny because similar sort of thing when I was talking with Hayden in the lead up to this, and I was saying, seriously, mate, I don't care what you have to do, just make Yi chase you down. I'm so sick of him just getting off the bike and running on your shoulder and pulling away. Like, make him work to catch you. And I saw the 16 seconds and I thought we could be on here because Hayden could run a little bit, like not flat out, let Yi catch him and almost let Yi think he's got this and then sort of pull away a little bit, and then Hayden can be in the position for once where he sits behind Yi and attacks.
Yeah, because Yi is going to be on his limit chasing, because he's like, I'm chasing. So he's on his limit. If Hayden just lets him catch him a little bit sooner and isn't on his limit, which I think is what Hayden did, having spoken to him afterwards, both of us have spoken to him afterwards in a group chat, I think that's what he did. He said, you know what? I think he's suffering. He's chasing me. He's going to catch me. I don't need to run at my limit because he's going to catch me whether I'm at my limit or not. And then I've got that second gear, which I think is where he was. And fuck me, I wanted to see that
Then
race
something
end, mate.
happens, mate, because then we get the news, as you said, about this 10-second penalty. And we're going to talk about the stuff later because we got the article about the appeal and everything, and I think we can address it then. But then it was sort of like, okay, well, this is
Race
and then
over.
race over, basically.
Mm.
What I want to point out just before we get onto it is I thought Jamie Riddle from South Africa was exceptional for such a young athlete to go out. Like, he's another, we've seen the Richard Murray come and go. He's obviously raced for the Netherlands now. Henry Schoeman coming back from injury, but Jamie Riddle, he's racing Super League, I believe, this year. I'm very excited to see what Jamie does at that, because he was like, for me, was one of the like, oh, cool. Here's a nice little young talent we see come through, which is really good. But yeah, it went from being like very quickly for me, this is going to be epic, to,
it became a nothing burger, didn't it? And in the moment, obviously, Hayden took it like a champion. He received the news. He had a little bit of a dig, just almost like a TV attack. And then he pulled up. They had a fist bump, and Yi went.
I liked that.
Yi went and took the gold medal. Hayden served his penalty and came in for silver. And despite the appeal we're going to talk about, I think Hayden is still taking it like a champion. I don't think there's anything unsportsmanlike in the appeal. I just think it's a genuine sporting appeal, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But well done to Yi for getting the gold medal. What a performance! But my God, did I feel like we were hard done by with that? Don't get me wrong. Just because as an audience member, I feel gutted that we didn't see the end, doesn't mean I don't think the penalty was a penalty. If the appeal works and they prove that it wasn't an issue, then fair enough. But if he did unbuckle his helmet before he racked his bike, then he made a mistake, and he deserved a penalty. But still, I wish that hadn't happened, because my God, I wanted to see that race end.
So first place, Alex Yee, 50.34. Second place, Hayden Wild, 50.47 with a 10-second penalty. Third place, Matt Hauser, 50.50. Fourth place, Jake Birtwistle, 51.06. And fifth place, Grant Sheldon, 51.24. Let's talk about the penalty, mate, because this also comes from Graham Try 24/7. Hayden Wild is protesting and says that both he and Yee should get both get gold. Hayden Wild confirmed that he has lodged a formal protest about the penalty, which ended his bid for gold in the Commonwealth Games last week. The 24-year-old New Zealander, though, has also moved to clarify that he is not looking to overturn Alex Yee's stunning victory. Instead, he wants the penalty overturned and both men to receive gold medals. Immediately after the race, Wild described the penalty as debatable and said he would be appealing. Later, writing in an Instagram post, he provided the specifics. He said, "And just to be really clear, I have lodged a formal protest over the pretty questionable 10-second penalty I got today. I'm not appealing Alex's win by any stretch. The man's performance was top class. My team and I suggested to World Triathlon the penalty should be overturned, and both Alex and I given 2 golds. Reason for this, I once knew I had the penalty serve. I definitely influenced my run strategy. Anyway, we have 30 days to appeal." Now, I think in the lead, I think there was a lot of discussion. We said the race was over, but what the discussion, again, in the MX group when we're watching this was, does Hayden take the penalty and accept the silver, or does he not take the penalty, finish the race, and then appeal and potentially be disqualified? That was the discussion. I didn't know that there was this third option where you take the penalty, finish second, and can ask for it. I didn't know you could do that. I'm actually quite okay with him protesting. I think it was. Look, I don't know whether my gut says it was a penalty. Personally, I looked at it, and again, there's a lot.
My gut does as well. My gut does as well. Just because he's a friend of the show and a friend of ours doesn't mean that you can't fuck up and you can't go, well, you got a penalty. No one wants to see races decided by protests, but I don't have a problem with that protest coming when you're allowed to do it. I think it would have been a foolish mistake to ignore it, finish the race, and risk being disqualified. I think that would have been a mistake, because I think then there would have been a hard line drawn where they just gone, no, mate, you didn't listen, you didn't take your penalty, therefore game over, DQ. I think taking the silver, accepting it like he did, taking the silver and then putting in his protest is probably, if you're going to protest, the best way out of it.
Do you think, because one of the other things I wonder is, and again, I understand it changed the way I race and everything, but he still finished more than 10 seconds behind you. Because again, purely being objective now, I'd say, okay, if they overturn the penalty, they just take the 10 seconds off. And I don't know whether the 2 golds is necessarily the ideal solution either.
Nah,
I feel
I
like
don't either. I don't either. And look, I don't think this protest is going to come to anything. Sorry, I interrupted you then, but
that's
I don't
okay.
think this protest is going to come to anything. And I don't think the 2 golds is an ideal solution. Look, this is pro sport, for fuck's sake. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
One
That's where I'm
winner.
at too. It's a bit. It feels no kumbaya moment. You know, like
Yeah,
I want to have.
no,
yeah.
In school sports day, we don't share the honours. Like, fuck's sake, one winner, job done. He's right to protest if he's got that right, and fair play. We'll see how it shakes out. I don't think the protest will come to anything. And personally, I love you, Hayden. I don't think it should come to anything. But,
I echo your thought. And again, I'll talk about this a little bit more when we get into the mixed team relay, because there's something I do want to sort of link back to the race. So you can take us to the mixed team relay, mate, because I've done a fuckload of talking.
Yeah,
so
man,
I'll let you lead us through the mixed team relay.
Now, I will have to rely on the summary here, because this is a race I didn't watch. Again, the summaries come from Try 24/7. Leg 1, Alex Yee made what appeared to be a decisive break late on the run, producing a sudden burst which even Wild could not live with. Behind the leaders, Jake Birtwistle of Australia had moved past a flagging Riddle into third. As Yee handed over Coldwell, Team England had a 20-second lead over New Zealand. The individual gold medal winner stopped the clock with 17:27 after a simply blistering opening leg. Australia were third, just a further 5 seconds back. Leg 2, Sophie Coldwell exited the water, having extended the advantage with an excellent swim. The gap to second place, Van Kovenen of Australia, was now 24 seconds, with Van der Kay falling back to third. As Coldwell handed over to Dickinson at the halfway stage of the race, the gap at the front had closed a little, with Potter dragging the chase back, which included Wales and New Zealand, to within 27 seconds. Still very much advantage England, though. Leg 3. As he had on Friday, Sam Dickinson had put in another massive effort, and it was showing as he grimaced during the approach to the handover. As he handed over to Georgia Taylor-Browne, the advantage to England was now just 16 seconds. The chase back was now 3 strong, and Wales, New Zealand and Australia giving chase, heading into the final leg. Scotland, meanwhile, had fallen back to 5th, more than a minute off the pace, and now likely out of medal contention. Georgia Taylor-Browne opted not to wear a wetsuit as she set off to try and bring home gold for England. Chasing her were Non Stamford of Wales, Andrea Hansen of New Zealand, and Sophia Lynn of Australia. Georgia Taylor-Browne set off alone on the bike while the chasers shared the work, surely in hope rather than the anticipation, as they desperately tried to cut the gap. GTB was smooth and serene as the head of affairs, and her massive lead had grown to exactly 1 minute as she went through T2 and out onto the run. Now surely it was all about who would win the race for silver and bronze. Early on, it was Stamford of Wales and Lynn of Australia, building a gap over Hansen of New Zealand. Stamford produced a fairy tale swan song to her great career by sprinting away from Lynn to clinch the silver medal for Wales, as Australia settled for bronze. So the results in the mixed team relay were Team England in 1:16.40, Team Wales in 1:17.26, Australia in 1:17.29, with New Zealand in 4th in 1:17.37.
Yes. Now, there, again, lots to talk about with this race. And the first thing I want to talk about is I want to link back a little bit to the men's race, because firstly, Alex Yee, I thought actually on the bike, he gave it some. He really went with Hayden and they got off the bike, I think, basically together. And then Alex just went, see you later, mate, and dropped the sort of run that I've been talking a lot about this year, saying that Alex Yee is light years ahead of everybody else, including Hayden. And I thought that was more apparent than anything. And I genuinely think the way we saw Alex do this, and I know there's a lot of stuff, this proves to me, or shows me, I shouldn't say proves, demonstrates to me that I really think Hayden wouldn't have been able to beat him if the penalty wasn't there. Like, Yee put 20 seconds into him, mate, in like a 2K run.
Yeah.
20 seconds. Like,
yeah, hell of a run.
It was devastating. Alex Yee, mate, fucking hell.
Without question, that set Team England up for the win. That was the defining feature. The rest of it was strong.
No. Georgia Taylor-Browne put in a minute into the group chase, or putting time into the group chase, and it also really, really impressed me, because there was 3 women chasing her, and she put time into them, mate. Like, it was fucking phenomenal.
So the front and end of the relay for Team England were the keys there. Coldwell obviously had a good swim and extended that lead there. I would big shout out to Non Stamford bringing Wales into the silver medal. I love that. Yeah, it's good to see. People are saying she's rounding out her career. I don't know if she's retiring. I don't know when she's finishing. I don't want to put that into her world. But if she is rounding out her career, then what a way to do it. But, if anything, it shows to me that maybe now's not the time to round out your career. You've probably got some more in you.
Yeah, I'll go a little longer, maybe. I don't know.
And Australia got a medal,
But
mate.
we did. We got two. We got two bronze medals, mate. Maddie
Yeah.
Hauser got third, and Australia. But again, it was a little bit bittersweet because again, I was pretty excited to see Sophie Lynn again. I was pretty impressed with her performance in the individual, and then to see because they cut away to obviously watch Georgia finish, and I was like, no, I know we need to see Georgia finish, but I want to see this battle between second and third, and then it cut back, and it was like, yep, non-Stanford's won this. Like she's
Yeah.
10, 15 meters clear.
I love a mixed relay relay. I was very disappointed I didn't have the chance to watch this one because I was away from any screens at that point. But was it an exciting race to watch from an audience perspective? Because I know you watched it.
Yeah, I guess it's the same thing. I think the thing I really like about the mixed team relay is any weakness you have as an athlete is exposed. Like there's nowhere to hide in the mixed team relay short course because with World Triathlon Racing, even if you're not the best swimmer or you're not the best biker or you're not the best runner, there's enough people around you that you can you get towed along a bit. Not here, mate, because if you even for a second get dropped on anything and suddenly you are completely isolated, those gaps can blow out really, really quickly. I mean, would I have liked to see the racing a bit closer? Absolutely. But I'm still really excited to see those individual performances. I mean, Sam Dickinson, he's clearly the weak link of the English team, but his guts, it was just pure guts watching this guy run in that last, 500 meters in agony. Like his grimacing face was like, I'm loving this. Like this is the stuff I love. And it came down. Ultimate didn't come down to a close finish for first, but it did come for second and third, including Australia, which made me quite happy. And just saw again. I think if you look at the people racing this, yes, it's a Commonwealth Games, and yes, a lot of the people who normally would be to a start list weren't there. A lot of people who were there were very, very good athletes, and I think we saw some great racing. So I was pretty happy with it.
Cool. More to come, eh?
More to come. Well, there is more to come in this podcast too, mate, including the next part of the show, which I'm going to allow you to introduce right now.
Well, welcome to the down low on the PTO.
I'm still waiting to hear you do the really cinematic, exciting, welcome to the down low on almost coming, like the mask, mate, or something.
It's coming. It's coming. We've had some captain's picks, but we haven't had all the captain's pick. We haven't had the Team Rest of the World, Team International captain's picks, but we have had the captain's picks for the Team US and the Team Europe. The first captain picks have been revealed for the Collins Cup with Sophie Watts, Sarah True, Jason West, and Ben Canute called into Team US. Commenting on their reasoning, 6 times Kona winner and captain of Team US Dave Scott, in selecting Watts, True, and West and Canute, we've added additional firepower to Team US. In Jason West, we have an athlete who's broken out this year and begun to show his potential with a great performance in Chattanooga, where he scored 98 PTO World Ranking points. Ben Canute is a Collins Cup veteran. Having the 4th fastest time at last year's event, he understands the pressure that occurs once you don the stars and stripes, and we know he is a man prepared for the battle. Captain Julie Moss explained it was a close call on the women's side. It was a difficult decision, so there were so many deserving athletes. With Sophie Watts' 2022 performances after an injury in 2021, all being in the mid-80s, she had demonstrated not only consistency but a fiery determination well suited for being part of Team US. Her strength on the run will make her a feared opponent at Samarin. What can I say about Sarah True? Coming back from maternity leave and injury, she has 2 races this year and averaged 103 points. As a former Olympian, she has the speed, strength, and guts to challenge any athlete at the Collins Cup. What do you think of these Team US picks, Mr. Ford?
Again, love it. Ben Canute's an athlete. I've spoken a lot in the past about how, until I think the Norwegians, we always called him the most versatile athlete in the sport. And this distance really suits him. I think that we've seen Ben be very good at the short course. There's a period where he was racing the Olympics, racing Super League, racing 70.3s. I think he came second. Was it Chattanooga where he came second at 70.3 Worlds to Javier Gomez? Mm-hmm. Was that 2018 off the top of my head? He's always been really good, and I've always thought that those slightly shorter than 70.3 distances are very good for Ben. Again, Jason West, we've seen we talk about athletes with momentum. He's definitely been one this year. And then again, I think in the women's, they've made excellent picks. I think, I looked at it, I was like, cool picks. I'll be honest, I think US has probably got the hardest time of the 3 teams and who they've got to choose from. I think they've done really well. US is going into this with a very, very good squad this year.
Absolutely. It's a rounded selection, isn't it? And the justifications ring true. So Team Europe have added Lawrence, Spirit, Beckergaard, Laidlow to the Collins Cup. Captain Norman Stadler commented, it's always very difficult to choose the European captain's picks as there are so many outstanding athletes. In Daniel Beckergaard, we've experienced Collins Cup campaigner who knows the course and conditions well. and had the third fastest time at last year's Collins Cup. Daniel, as PTO world number 7 in the world, is also the highest ranked PTO athlete to not automatically qualify for any team. Sam Laidlow's tremendous performance at the PTO Canadian Open put on a display that he's ready to compete with the best and join our championship team. He'll be the first athlete from France to participate in the Collins Cup. On the women's side, Natasha Badman noted, for the European women, these picks were extremely difficult to make as there are so many outstanding athletes who deserve the rep to race for Team Europe. As last year's winner of the Julia Moss Award for the grittiest performance, Holly Lawrence demonstrated the true spirit of the Collins Cup and that demonstration of Team Europe. With Team Europe unexpectedly behind, Lawrence fell on the bike, costing her a massive amount of time. Bloodied and battered and robbed of her chance to win the match, she fought on the run and denied Team US and Team International vital bonus points. Her performance is already part of Collins Cup lore. While Nicola Spirig is a rookie for the Collins Cup, she is a seasoned veteran with an unprecedented career. 5-time Olympian and gold and silver medal winner, Nicola is one of the greatest women on the Olympic distance the sport has produced. It will be a joy to see her join Team Europe. Now, there is a little bit of controversy following this, isn't there? Because these captains' picks have been made by the captains as advertised, and people are asking why Emma Pallant-Browne wasn't included in this selection. So, what are your thoughts to this point, Mr. Ford?
Well, it's funny you talk about just before the Americans. How I saw them, I was like, no, these are really, really good. I saw these, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what is this? Have I missed? Where's Emma Pallant-Browne? And I think we should go straight into the next article, maybe to address it. First, maybe it's talk about the men's. Daniel Beckergaard, absolute no-brainer. Like, we're huge fans of Daniel. I'm really happy to see him there. So we got 2 Norwegians, 2 Danes racing for Team International. Maybe an Alistair Brownlee, maybe would have been one. I don't know. But Sam Laidlaw, like, he had that incredible performance in Edmonton. Big step up. Hey, like, you go from.
Yeah. I mean, is that a demonstration? If you race a P2 event, so you put yourself on their radar a bit more?
That's kind of what. And again, conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat on. It's kind of how it seems a little bit to me. It's like you want our money, you've got to support our events. And I mean, Ali raced Edmonton too, and we know that he just had a cramp or whatever. Day. But I mean, yeah, the women's race. I'm going to go to this article before we go. Jonathan Turner again, Tried 24/7. He said it was always going to be tricky for Team Europe skippers Norman Stadler and Natasha Badman to choose their captain's picks, for they had an embarrassment of riches to select from after their 4 automatic athletes on both men's and women's side were all ranked number 1 to 4. But it still came as something of a surprise to us that next highest ranked European on the women's side, Emma Pallant-Browne at number 9, didn't get one of the 2 wildcard slots, which instead went to Holly Lawrence number 12 and Nicola Spirig number 16. All 3 have clearly had extremely strong credentials at this point. It's a very tough choice for Stadler and Badman to make. This is from John Levinson. But his view on Pallant-Browne, despite her recent disappointment at the PTO Cup in Edmonton, was her form all year has been plenty good enough to get her to give her a pass here, especially given her captain's pick selection last year led to match victory in the 3rd quickest time of the day. And the reaction on social media was especially pronounced, especially on Instagram. Alongside the PTO's post, a whole host of high-profile triathletes wasted little time in joining the debate. I choose to believe in myself in the throngs of high-profile triathletes because I added my voice to it. Not really. One of the first was 70.3 world champion Lucy Charles-Barclay, who at the same time underlined what encouraging progress she is making in her recovery from injury. I did want to bring this up. For clarity, I threw my hat in the ring as a wildcard selection. I fully understand the reasons for not picking me, given I'm yet to race and demonstrate I'm the required standard to compete with so many European athletes to choose from. But to not pick Emma Pallant-Browne after the results she has already had this season, shocking and a shame on the decision makers for allowing bias to cloud judgment. That was echoed by Sam Long, who will be a key figure for Team US. Emma Pallant-Browne should have been picked. She has had a great year this year and last year, and her speciality is the middle distance. Pallant-Browne herself responded to Charles Barclay's post by saying, "Thanks, Lucy. Coming from the queen of triathlon, that means a lot." Now, it's important to note, James, that this article also referenced one of the rules around the captain's picks that the PTO maybe hasn't made as public as it should. And that rule says the final 2 athletes, male and female, are designated as captain's picks and will be selected by a committee of non-athlete members of the PTO board in consultation with the team captains. Now, just one last thing I want to add before we discuss it is one of the downsides of social media, of course, in some cases, is the tone can turn negatively towards those who have been selected, which is not really the issue. Emma Pallant-Browne, Holly Lawrence, and Nicola Spirig are all incredible athletes of the highest order. But mate, I was one of these people that when I saw this, I'm like, what the actual fuck? How has Emma Pallant-Browne not been picked? I picked her for the Edmonton win. She DNF'd, but the way we've seen her race, what we saw her do to Ashley Gentle at the championship, Emma Pallant-Browne to me was a sure thing, like a sure thing to me. And to see her not picked, I actually like. I think I probably would have picked Nicola. I wouldn't have picked Nicola Spirig, but it was always Emma Pallant-Browne plus one, and I probably would have gone Emma Pallant-Browne and Nicola Spirig, to be honest. Holly Lawrence for me is the surprise. And I think Holly's a great athlete, but I've just not seen Holly. I don't know where Holly's at. And mate, I think it's a travesty, to be honest. I genuinely think it's terrible.
It's a real shame because I think, like, I agree. I echo all of your comments you just made. Emma Pallant-Browne. Do you think there's an element of not want, because you've got Team Europe is 1 to 4, but so, and is there an element of not wanting to pick just the next sequential athletes? Otherwise, it becomes less a pick and more just, well, we just use the numbers. Do you think there's an element of that, but also a political decision because Holly Lawrence has got a bit of a higher profile than Emma Pallant-Browne? And when you say that these designated captains picks are also picked by a selection committee of non-athlete members of the PTO board in consultation with the team captains, do you think there's an element of, what she did last year at the Collins Cup with the crash and the rivalry with Eddie Salthouse and trying to bring some more eyes to it? Do you think there's an element of politics in it as well? Because they don't want these captains picks to simply be the next the next 2 athletes in the sequential order of rankings. Otherwise, it doesn't become. It's no longer a question. It's just, well, we know who they're going to be.
You see, until that article was read, that I wouldn't have known that Emma Pallant was the next ranked athlete. Like I can tell you the top 3 are in both men's and women's most of the time, but I'm not like able to spit out the top 15 at any one time. Like for me, my interest in seeing Emma Pallant-Browne had nothing to do with her ranking. So that's absolutely a possibility. But what's interesting, and the thing that I want to circle back on a little bit, is what Lucy Charles Barclay said, where she said, what did she say? The results had already been this shocking and a shame on decision makers for allowing biases to cloud judgment. And I wonder what that is. That's what I'm curious about. What's the bias that they're talking about?
What is the bias? I would suggest that bias comes down to a profile. The profile an athlete carries, as opposed
Emma Pallant-Browne's
to
the European champion, mate. She won the European Championships.
Yeah, I'm talking more about like
it's weird though, isn't it?
And influence and stuff, and that kind of thing. Because the PTO Collins Cup is still trying to grow as a thing, as an entity, and so they're probably like Holly Lawrence, the story around last year, the followers and the following she's got.
The other thing, mate, you talk about. Let's talk about Nicola Spirig a little bit. Again, one of the greatest athletes of all time. I'm a huge Nicola Spirig fan. But she's even been quite confessed that she had that serious crash and lead up to sub-8. And she's not been able to prepare the way she normally would. And like is she going to be able to fire at the same? Like, I don't know. Has enough time passed where she is back to being the Nicola Spirig we know? Or is she almost like, is it a let's give Nicola Spirig her like last, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
Again, I think inclusion of Nicola Spirig brings eyes and brings talking, doesn't it? I just feel that they've gone down that road a little bit more on this side than they have the performance road. I think, they've made us talk about it. And I
just wish it was a bit more like not. I don't like that we got the conspiracy hats on, but like genuinely, this shocked me. Like, I read it and because I'm excited, I'm like, so it's Emma Pallant. Who else is going to be? I'm like, what? Now, talking about what you're saying, we touched on this last week, and I couldn't think of the who's to pick for the international. By the time this episode comes out, it's more than likely that they've already announced it. I expect it to be in a couple of hours. I thought about Flora Duffy, mate. Do you think we're going to see Flora Duffy get a captain's pick?
I hope so. I hope we're going to see Flora Duffy get a captain's pick. I really do. I think it's well deserved, and it's an excellent point you made earlier. Because I think out of all of them, she's the one that you'd want in there, wouldn't you?
I'm also hoping that there's some way that Emma Pallant-Browne can really, really quickly take up South African citizenship, and then we can take Emma Pallant-Browne to race a team international. Because we'll have you, Emma Pallant-Browne. Please come race for us. You're married to a South African. I'm sure there's some loophole that we can make. But yeah, it was. So again, you're right. It gives us something to talk about. It would have been a bit. It's definitely more interesting talking about it this way rather than just going, "Yep, they've announced it in this." But yeah. I don't know, mate, because it is almost like what you said is true, but also the PTO, the people who have the ranking system, they want us to buy in on. And the incentive for the athletes is to chase the points. Chase the points, build your way up the rankings. And then at our biggest payday, where you're not paid for your result, you're paid based on your ranking to appear, to then not be picked. Like it just feels a little clunky.
I agree. It feels a little clunky, but I suppose their response would be, well, chase the ranking points, get in the auto qualifying zone, and you don't have to worry about it. The rest of it is an academic discussion around who,
And we say that it will be selected by non-athlete members of the PTO board. I don't like that. I don't like that, to be honest. If it's called a captain's pick, let the captain's picked it, because suddenly you go, now I read that, I'm not as, what's the point of the captains? They're literally just figureheads there to I say, okay, well, you don't need them. Like, why have, just get anybody. Just get celebrities in. It doesn't, suddenly I'm like, okay, so there's not actually much point of them. And again, looking at the way the matches were, I don't know. But I'm still excited about the Collins Cup. So,
game on, Collins Cup. Let's go.
That's it. Well, James Bale, if you're excited about the Collins Cup too and you want to have the same experience watching the Collins Cup that we had watching the Commonwealth Games, head to mxendurance.com/podcast where you can sign up. You get bonus monthly stuff. You get partner discounts. You get all sorts of stuff. If you listen before, I go on about this all the time. It's what makes us do the podcast. It supports us. It keeps the lights on, but it keeps us doing what we do. We appreciate the support. We get so many of your messages saying you love the show. So come and join at mxendurance.com/podcast. We'd love to see those podcast subscriptions come in. And as we said at the start, big things come in. Be the first to know behind the paywall. James Bale, if they want to find out other things about MX Endurance, where do they need to go?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at
rushing, isn't he?
85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at tford14 on Instagram. I've got to check out of this room. Please jump into iTunes and give the show a review. You can do it in the podcast app, and it really helps the show out. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend, help us grow and build. If you've got any comments, suggestions, or criticisms, then send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
Or you want to join our Discord. That's the other thing you can do. It's open to anybody who wants to join. James Bale, a pleasure. See you next week, mate. Go check out.
Cheerio.